So the last I was with was last Sunday, and that was Pembury. So I'm still getting used to the geography of the area, Pembury. And so I took a photograph of them. Here it is. This is Pembury last Sunday. All kind of, and they're sending their greetings. So I told them that I would be coming here, and I said, would you like to send your love and your greetings to Westmoreland? And they said, yes, you'll be glad to know. We'd love to do that. And so they're all kind of waving, and it's a bit tricky there. We had to do a panel. That's why it looks a little bit kind of curved. But they're waving and sending their greetings to you. Oh, have I brought my mobile phone up here? No, I haven't. Oh, yes, I have. Is it okay to send your greetings to the next church that I'll be visiting? Is that all right? You'd probably like to know. Would you like to know who it is? That's absolutely crucial, isn't it? Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't matter, but I will tell you anyway. So I'm going to be down in Warmer next Sunday, down on the coast. Yeah, so the part of our association, Warmer Baptist Church. So are you happy to send your greeting? You probably don't know much about Warmer, and they probably don't know much about you, but I'll be able to share a little bit about Westmoreland and share that with them when I see them. Are you happy to do that? It's going to be a little bit straightforward here. Music group, you may, if you want to be in it, you might have to move over there, if that's okay. Or you're just not in it. That's absolutely fine. So give us a wave, and in your waving and your smiling, what you're doing is sending your love and greetings to the folk at Warmer. That's great. I'll take a couple just in case someone's squinting. That is marvellous. And if that's okay, I'll check with Dave later. We'll put that on Facebook as well, on the SEBA Facebook page, so everyone can see your happy faces across our association. Well, thank you for the opportunity to share. I mean, that's enough of me and SEBA so much. It's be good to turn to God's word together. And thank you for the opportunity to do this on this occasion. And I'm going to read from Jeremiah. In fact, some of the words have already been read to us to some extent, so we're going to revisit some of what has already been read to us in a different way. But Jeremiah 29, and I'm going to read from verse 4 through to 14, if you've got a Bible in front of you. And this is a letter written by the prophet Jeremiah to the people of Israel who are in exile. They've been sent from their country and now in Babylon, and are wondering, what on earth is God doing? And this is the letter that he writes to them. Verse 4. This is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says to all those I carried into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon. Build houses, settle down. Plant gardens and eat what they produce. Marry and have sons and daughters. Find wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, so that you too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number there, do not decrease. Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have called you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. Yes, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says. Do not let the prophets and diviners among you deceive you. Do not listen to the dreams you encourage them to have. They are prophesying lies to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares the Lord. Probably the prophecies that they were giving was everything's going to be all right in a little while. You'll see in a moment that that's not the case. This is what the Lord says Jeremiah. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back from captivity. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I have banished you, declares the Lord. and I will bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile. I'm going to spend a bit of time looking at those words together in a moment or two. Well, I don't know about you, 2022, 2023, as we kind of cross the threshold from moving from one year to another, I'm never really sure how long you say Happy New Year to people. Does anyone know? I'm still writing emails, not sure whether I should include that still in my emails. But anyway, regardless, if it's too late, I'm sorry, but Happy New Year to you all as we enter into 2023. I turned, this is just a little secret, I turned 55 last year in December. And I don't know what it is, but as I gradually get older, I get more pessimistic. I'm generally a very optimistic person. Don't misunderstand me. I'm very optimistic, in fact. But as I get older, I get and enter 1 year into the next, I kind of get a little bit more pessimistic as time goes by. And as I looked into 2023, from personal reasons, but also I think national and global reasons, I kind of look into the future, and I do wonder whether we're entering a very, very uncertain time. I don't want to be doom and gloom, by the way. I want to bring a word of encouragement to you this morning. But I do wonder. Now, part of that is probably where I am in terms of my life. I'm at a certain age, and my mum and my dad passed away last year, so it suddenly dawns on me that I've now got to grow up. I don't know if you've ever been through that experience when your parents pass. You suddenly think, goodness me, the mature, the wise, the sensible ones, the ones we went to when we were misbehaving to learn to be better, are no longer there. And all the children, and we haven't got grandchildren at this point in time, but nieces and nephews, they're kind of looking to us to be wise and secure and safe and all those kind of things. So I find myself personally in a new place, a place that I've not been before, a place where I can't just ring my mum or go and see my dad at this point in time. But at the same time, I look at the war in Ukraine, the crisis in terms of cost of living, energy, environment. I don't want to be too doom and gloom, but it doesn't look too bright, does it, as we kind of look forward. And then I think in terms of church life, I mean, that's a good story, isn't it, about the bread of life, I hope. You're encouraged by that. And I am encouraged. I'm hearing stories that churches are flourishing, and I think you are in a moment when God is moving you forward into exciting times for the future of what God has for you. But for some churches, that isn't the case. For some churches, they are seeing decline. For some churches, they're facing the question of whether they should close. And generally, in this country, the church is on the back foot. The church has been pushed into the margins. You may even say, and some have, we're finding ourselves in a place where it feels a little bit like we've been exiled. We're finding ourselves not at the center of things, where everything is happening around the temple, where worship of God is central to the whole nation. Oh no, we're now finding ourselves right at the edges, where very, very few people consider the worship of God in their lives. And things don't look too bright. Well, I think in moments like this, then it's good to return to some of these passages that are written for the people of Israel in exile and to actually say, what did God say to these people in such a time when things were uncertain? I've been very careful not to use the word unprecedented because it's an overused word. And actually, I'm not sure if it's true in some ways because sorry, this is going to sound really bad, isn't it? I mean, things could get better, but things could get worse as well. I mean, there are moments in history where it's been worse. I mean, let's not suggest that we're living in the worst times ever. That would be ridiculous because I think you can go through history and find plenty of other times when things have been incredibly difficult. But things are uncertain, are they not? Or for many people, things are uncertain. What has God got to say to the people of Israel through Jeremiah, and perhaps what we can apply to ourselves? Well, let me share 4 things that I think we can draw out of this passage. And I hope and pray that this will be an encouragement to you. God put on my heart as I entered into regional ministry about 5 years ago. He said, go and refresh the hearts of the saints. Go and encourage the people of God. I think that's such a precious gift, isn't it? So my prayer is that you will be encouraged in these words. So the first thing is this. Number one, God says to the people, settle in the present. Settle in the present. Build homes, settle down, plant gardens, eat what they produce, marry and have sons and daughters, find wives for your sons and give daughters in marriage so that you too may have sons and daughters. Increase in number, do not decrease. Common question that I get asked, having just recently moved from Hampshire to Kent, and people know that, they will often say to me, are you settling? Are you settling? I never know really how to answer that question. I'm not really sure what that means, to settle. I think probably the answer at this point in time is no. I mean, there's lots of things that are taking place and part in my life. It's a new job, new role, new people to meet. It's going to take a long time to kind of settle. So I'm not really sure what that means. But God says to the people of Israel, settle. Make it your home. We know that God has called us to be here. And this is to be our home, our place where we are to serve. Eventually, we need to settle in to that calling and that place. And God says to the people of Israel, settle. Settle. I don't know what kind of person you are. Some people are people who love to live in the past. And I think this is an age thing to some extent because when I passed mid-age, I suddenly realized that there was more behind me than there was in front of me. Have you ever suddenly realized that? And actually, although I am a person of the future, I love thinking about the things of the future, I'm finding myself reflecting more on the things of the past. And I think that may be just a period of my life to some extent. Are you a person that likes to reflect in the past? Are you, you may be a church member that likes to remind your minister of the things of what happened in church many years ago. You know, that things were so much better in the past. And of course, for the people of Israel, things were so much better. They were at home. They were in the place they could worship at the temple, which Solomon built. You know, things were great in the past. But God does not say to them, dwell in the past in this moment. And maybe you're a person like me who's more of a future-orientated person, where you're just interested in what's going to happen tomorrow. And you're kind of looking forward and you're thinking, tomorrow's going to be better. And you keep telling Dave, come on, Dave, be more visionary. Lead us forward into the great harvest that is to come. Maybe you're that kind of person. Right? Now listen, there's nothing wrong with giving thanks to the past. There's nothing wrong of looking back and saying, actually, I love church anniversaries because there's a moment where we look back in the past and we say, God has done great things. And we don't want to miss that, do we? We want to give thanks to what God has done in the past. And there's nothing wrong in looking forward and saying, God, you've got greater days ahead of us. Nothing wrong with that at all. May the Holy Spirit guide and lead us into whatever is in store. This is my point, though. In whatever happened yesterday, and whatever happened tomorrow, don't miss what God is doing today. Today. In the very present. Settle in the present. Wherever you find yourself, good or bad, difficult or great, recognize that God is the God of today. And I think God was saying to these people, I'm here with you in exile. I'm here in this moment of difficulty, in this moment of uncertainty where things are so different. I am here with you right now. God's here now with us today, in this moment, dwelling amongst his people. And let's appreciate that he is God today. I love that Psalm 118, verse 24. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Settle in the day, settle in the moment, settle in the present. Number 2, God says to them also, seek peace. Verse 7, 29 verse 7. Also seek the peace and prosperity of the city to which I have carried you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, because if it prospers, you too will prosper. You ever seen those keep calm signs? Keep calm and carry on. There's loads all around the place now, aren't there? I checked some out. Keep calm and have a cuppa. Apparently, keep calm and jingle all the way. That's a Christmas one, that is. My wife would love this one. Keep calm and eat bananas. And then in a lot of churches now, and a lot of places, is keep calm and wash your hands, is the sign. We're told to keep calm. Scripture actually says to us, seek peace. Seek peace. Seek the peace of God, and seek the peace and prosperity of the community around you. Now, if I was exiled, if an enemy invaded my land and I was taken off into exile, I think I would be signing up secretly to the resistance party, the group that would cause havoc for my enemy. And I wouldn't be seeking peace for the community, but I'll be seeking havoc and annoyance and just disrupting things as much as I possibly can. We saw it in the Second World War. In France particularly, the French resistance was quite strong and was very busy in annoying the Germans. It's kind of where we go. But God says, don't do that to your enemies. Don't hate your enemies. Don't hold it against your enemies. But actually see in this moment of uncertainty, see that you are actually a blessing to them. The word here actually is shalom. And the danger of the English word peace is that we immediately think of quietness, which is nice. God is not particularly saying, keep quiet. He's not saying that at all to them. He's saying, bring the shalom of God into this situation. In fact, the better word, I think, is blessing. Bring the blessing of God into the situation. And I know this has been on your heart and your journey recently, that you want to bless the people of Malling. You want to ensure that the community here know of the peace, the shalom of God in their lives. That you want them to prosper. You want the community. If you focus on the community and say, God, will your blessing be poured out on them? What God says through the letter of Jeremiah is, as you bless them, you'll be blessed. That will come along with it. But turn your focus not to the blessing on us, but the blessing on them. That they may know all the goodness, all the grace, all the mercy, all the provision, all the love of God himself. And as they're blessed, you will be blessed. Bring the peace of God. Seek peace for the sake of the community around you. Number 3, remain patient. This always puts a smile on my face. The reason being is I'm not very patient. I've never been patient, even as a young lad. You know, if we were going on holiday, I just could not sleep for days ahead. Can't we go now? And I was that kid in the car that was saying, are we there yet? Can we get there quicker, please? I just got to get on with enjoying myself and having fun. Impatient child, and I think to some extent I've been an impatient man as I've grown up. But God says to them, and this is so important. He says to them in verse 10, when 70 years are complete. You see, the prophecies that were being given were probably saying, it's okay, we're going back to Israel tomorrow. God is going to move in power and might. He's going to smite the enemy. And before you know it, we'll be back in Israel, back in Jerusalem, back worshipping at the temple. And in Jeremiah, I mean, you could say it's a bit miserable, couldn't you? But Jeremiah says to them, no, that is not God's plan. God's plan is that you'll be here for 70 years. What is 70 years? It's a whole generation. A whole generation. The generation that left Israel will never return. And the generation that never saw Israel will eventually go back. Isn't that fascinating? Now, I don't know about you, but if God said to me, through difficult times, it's going to last for 70 years. I mean, 7 seconds is hard enough, isn't it? 7 minutes is tough. 7 days is really difficult. 70 years of being where you don't want to be, being in an exile, is really difficult. But God is saying to them, my time is my time. And you can trust me. You can trust me. Now, look, I'm not suggesting by any means that God drags his feet. There are moments when God moves faster than we could ever imagine. But there are also moments when God is moving slower than we want to move. What we need to do, and we get to this in the last point, is to seek him and walk at his pace, whatever his pace may be. It's interesting to know that Jesus did ministry at 3 miles an hour. You know that? I love canal boat, going on a canal boat. Every now and then, occasionally, when my life gets really busy, I kind of say to Sue, I need to go on a canal boat. I need to get on a canal boat. The reason being that when I go on a canal boat, life slows down. And the great thing about canal boating, if you've never done it, is that you have to go at 2 to 3 miles an hour. You can't go any faster. You can't rush. I mean, these people that try rushing at canal boats normally end up in the side of the canal. It doesn't really work. So you've got to just take it as it comes and slow down. When Jesus did ministry, he did it at 2 to 3 miles an hour. He did it at walking pace, didn't he? He wasn't rushing around. He wasn't jumping his car, getting to this place or that place or the other place. They walked from one place to the other. And in fact, sometimes when they wanted to rush, he held them back, didn't he? He said, slow down. We're not going yet. Lazarus, for example, Lazarus dies, and they're thinking, well, Jesus, there's a rush going on. He's going to die. We've got to get to him before he dies. And Jesus says, no, we're not going yet. And then eventually they do go. To discover the timing of God, to discover the pace of God is so crucial that we learn this patience in who he is, not what we want him to do. And when we discover that, what we discover is actually God does more than we can ever imagine. Isn't it a strange thing that he might go slower but do more? He goes slower but goes further. He's at a slower pace, and yet in that slower pace, he can do so much more than we could ever imagine. Be patient. I will complete my work. All is good. I am here with you. Do not fear. When I visit people in hospital, and I don't do that so much, but I know Dave, you will, and Steve is doing that regularly. Almost everyone that I used to meet as a local pastor, I was to go in and they would say to me, Pastor, I just want to get home. And I'd look them in the eye, I'd hold their hand, and I'll say, you do know why you're called the patient? Because you have to be patient. You have to allow the time to pass to be healed before you go home. May we be people who are patient in God, leaning in God, and waiting on him. And then finally, rest in his promise. Rest in his promise. And here we come to the great verse that people so love, and actually often turn to in times of difficulty and crisis. They often leave out all the context that we've kind of spent some time thinking about over the last few minutes and go straight to this verse. Very understandable. But let me read from verse 10 into verse 11. God says this, I will come to you after 70 years, this is. I will come to you and fulfill my good promise and bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. What God is saying to them is, I know. I know. I know. I know the times that you find yourself As we enter into 2023, God says to us, I know. Whatever we throw up, God, my mum and dad have died. I know. God, I don't know what's going to happen in Ukraine. I know. God, I don't know how I'm going to get through the next week and pay for my energy bill. I know. God says that time and time again. And I'm not suggesting that we become complacent. And I know the picture looks like the person who's being very passive here. In a minute, I'm going to kind of just knock that a little bit. I'm not suggesting that we're passive. There is activity in resting. We'll get to that in a moment. But there is this sense of not being over urgent, but listening to God and knowing that he knows. And if he knows, it's okay. It's okay. We trust him and we walk with him and we rest in him. But rest isn't passive. What God says that in this moment of knowing and trusting God, what he says is this in verse 12, then you will call on me and come and pray to me and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me, and when you seek me with all your heart, I will be found by you. In this trusting God in his promises, in resting in his promises, doesn't mean we sit back. What it means is we seek God in those times. Well, we seek God in every time, but we seek God in those times, particularly in prayer. Particularly in prayer, both as individuals. I think lockdown for many people is a really difficult period of time, no doubt about it. But for some, and some churches, I think they rediscovered what it meant to pray together. And so many churches still, I don't know if you're doing it, are you still praying on Zoom? Some churches still having prayer meetings on Zoom. Let me encourage you as a church to prioritize your prayer times together. To seek God together, to come together and say, God, we're not coming with an agenda, we're not coming with a plan, we're not coming to kind of try and wake you up, we're not coming with our list, but we're coming to be in your presence. We're coming to seek you, to seek your face and just be with you and allow you to do what only you will do. And be reassured that if God promises things, God will fulfill his promise. Promise here is that there is a plan, there is a future, there is a hope. Trust him and discover it. And there's so many promises, isn't there, that God has given us. And I just want to remind you one that Jesus offers to the church, which I hold dear. When I was a local pastor of a local village church in Old Harlow, so the big town of Harlow, but we were like in the little village of Old Harlow. On the prayer of the week of Christian unity, so this week, the beginning of that week, many, many years ago, I got a phone call from the local Catholic priest. And Father Michael's in his 70s. I'd never met him before. He just, out of the blue, my phone rang. It was Father Michael on the end of the phone. And he said to me, I'm praying for you during this week of prayer for Christian unity. I said, well, bless you. I said, I'll pray for you. And he said, what would be great is, why don't you come round for lunch at some point? So we began this tradition of actually meeting up. Baptist and Catholic priests. It's an interesting combination. Two kind of very different worlds collide. I used to love going round to Father Michael. And we had this agreement. We said we wouldn't talk theology. We wouldn't talk ecclesiology, churchmanship stuff. We'd just enjoy each other's company, which we did. But every now and then we allowed ourselves just to drift a little bit into theology and conversations about the church. And I remember once saying to Father Michael, who was a much wiser, older gentleman, more experienced. Harlow was my first church, more experienced than I was. And I remember looking him in the eye and I said to him, Father Michael, do you ever get worried? Do you get worried that the church is in decline in this country? And he looked me straight back, a bit like that head teacher used to do. And he said these words. He said, did not Jesus say, I will build my church? He did. I felt a bit told off, but I'm so grateful for that conversation. Not to get complacent, because we're part of that. We join in with the building of the church. But Jesus' promise to us in 2023, as it always has been since he said these words, that on our confession of faith, to trust him as the Messiah, the risen one, the glorious one of God, that he will build his church. Be encouraged. Be encouraged. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for your word. We thank you that when we journey into times that are unknown, uncertain, unsure, when the things around us have changed and things look different and we're not sure where we're going, we thank you that you are with us. We thank you, Lord, that you always travel alongside us and you will never leave our side. Lord, I pray for this church again. I pray that they would settle in the present, see what you're doing today, and recognize that it is a thing of God. May they seek peace, Lord. May they seek peace, your peace in their own lives, but particularly the peace, the blessing of God upon this community. May they remain patient, walking at your pace, watching and waiting to see what you do. And may they rest in your promises, knowing that you will fulfill everything that you say. And all that you say is glorious, and all that you will do is wonderful. May your blessing be upon them now and always. Amen.
John.